Hey guys, today we're going to take a closer look at our charcuterie collection. We've partnered with Driftless Provisions over in Baroka, Wisconsin to use our own pastured pork and grass-fed beef to make little charcuterie salamis. We've got a couple of different salami flavors as well as pepperoni, and we've got some cheeses from Alpendale Cheese Store in Monroe. In this video today, we're going to take a closer look at how to arrange those salamis and cheeses into a beautiful grazing board that you can share with your guests. I do want to clarify, I am by no means an expert. I'm not a food stylist. I'm not a professional, but I am an eater. And that's the beauty of a grazing board, is you can be anybody. You don't have to be a food stylist to make an impressive display that you're proud of and your guests will love too. So come along with me. Let's get to it. First thing that you kind of want to start with is picking your base, whether you're going to use a wood cutting board or maybe like a silver or glass plate, whatever you choose, go ahead and pick that. That'll be the base that you build everything else on then. And once you have that, you can kind of pick some small dishes that you'll put some accoutrements in later. So what I have set out here is kind of a lot. I just wanted to show you all the different possibilities, and I'm a firm believer in sharing what you already have, what you know you love. You don't have to get crazy with this. All of these things I just pulled out of the pantry or fridge, things that we already have. So there's kind of different themes of items to include on a grazing board, and the big staples are cheese and meat, charcuterie. But then you also have spreads. People include honey. You can include vegetables, dips, different fruits, pickled items, mushrooms, sauerkraut, and then of course crackers to go with the cheese and meat, and dried nuts and fruits. And who doesn't love chocolate? We can include that too. So those are kind of the different types of foods I have out. And then from here, we'll kind of arrange them onto the grazing platter in groups. So because we're in Greene County, we're going to start with the cheeses, right? We have these 3 cheeses for sale on the website. They're the Prairie Sunset, Gouda, and Grand Cru. All of them are different flavors, different textures. The Prairie Sunset is the hardest. All of them are mild in flavor, and the Gouda is the softest. So you can play with different textures that way. We've got some feta crumbles here. Goat cheese would be great too, as kind of a softer spreading cheese. And then we have, obviously, the spreadable cheese here. To add some different textures to the board, just to keep things visually pleasing, you can cut your cheeses in a couple different ways. I've got some cheddar cut into cubes here. I've got some Swiss just because of the holes make it kind of aesthetic on its own. Little slices. You could also do little wedges, particularly with like these cheeses. That would be really nice. And of course, the fetas, the crumbles are already in a shape, and the spread you can just kind of place on the board like so. To create different separations on your board, you can use like little lids. You can set some things free on here, little dishes, and that'll help kind of bring some order and structure to your board. So like here, I'm going to fill this with the feta cheese crumbles so that they kind of have an organized station, and then I'll kind of just put the other cheeses in to create some spaces. Okay, so now that we've got our cheeses in all the different spots, you can see there's kind of different textures and colors going on in the different places. I just left the cheese spread in its own container and put a knife in it so it's easy to get to. The next thing we want to add is our meats. We've got our 4 different charcuterie flavors, including the new chorizo and lucanica, finocchiona and saucisson stick, and of course the pepperoni. They come in this nice log. You just slice them pretty thin, and then we'll get to arranging them here. One thing about these is they do come with a natural casing on them, and it is edible. You can choose to leave it on or take it off. It does come off pretty easy. You can see comes off fairly easy. So you can leave it on there. It does add a little bit to the flavor if you want to leave that up to your guest, or if you don't like it the way it looks, just tear it off and discard it to the side. Then for the pepperoni, if you want to add a little bit of shape to the board with these, you can fold them in half. They won't stick perfectly, but as you layer them on top of each other, they'll start to hold their shape. I like to have them up so it gives your guests something to grab and easily snack on. Okay, so we've got the meat and cheeses down. This is where you can start to get artsy and use these little thin slices to create different waves and elements on your board. You can kind of outline, you see I've got the pepperoni outlining this dish here, and the salamis kind of snake around the cheeses to start to make this a little more fun. Go with what feels good to you, what looks nice, and what you think your guests will enjoy, because in the end, everyone's going to eat it anyways. Next step is going to be the fruits and vegetables. I've just got a couple over here. Let's start with the vegetables. So I've got this nice radish. It's fall, it's in season. The watermelon radishes, the ones that have like the pink starburst, would be amazing on a charcuterie board. We don't have any in our fridge right now, so we're just gonna use this nice clean white one, and some carrots and some green microgreens. If you have cucumbers, that would be amazing. Or the little red and orange and yellow sweet peppers, that would be awesome on here as well. We've got radishes here, some splashes of green here, and I've actually decided that with the size of my board, I'm going to hold off on the carrots. You can always put them on a dish or a plate to the side. Your charcuterie board doesn't need to be limited to this exact space. That's part of why I have the napkin here, so that if I want to add some other dishes on the side that don't fit, I can do that, and then they're still part of the presentation. So now that we're done with the vegetables, we're going to move on to the fruits. I already sliced these apples and have them sitting in a lemon juice water mix. So I'm going to pick out the most beautiful pieces that I've got here. I've got some blueberries and red grapes as well that I've kind of cut into little small serving sizes based on the stem, so they're easy for people to grab when we put them onto the board here. I've got the apples sliced here. I started to add these red grapes in and kind of make a layered effect because this is built up. The height of the grapes kind of helps bring that down. You can see there it gives it a little bit more angle and depth onto the tray. And then we've got some blueberries here. Oh, where should we put them? I think they'd look nice next to these guys. Okay, so what's left to do here is the nuts, crackers, dried fruits, and pickled items. If you have gluten-free guests coming, you may want to consider just keeping all the crackers and breads to the side, so there's no mixing or matching, or just get all gluten-free crackers, things like that, just to keep food allergies in mind, because as you can see, things touch on the charcuterie board. We don't want any food-sensitive incidents happening at the holidays. So I've got a variety of different shapes, textures, flavors here, so that people can kind of pair and choose which one they like, and it just adds a little bit of vibrance to complement the charcuterie board. And I actually, as I'm doing this, like the way it looks on the cutting board over here, so I might leave it as a separate entity and fill my remaining spaces with some of the other things instead. That's the beauty of the charcuterie board, is you can kind of make it go the way you want it as you go. So because we're going to hold off on that, I'm going to move to the nuts and dried fruits next. As you can see, as we put more on here, the spaces get filled more. We've got some depth to it with the different layerings of things. So it's really coming together nicely. And obviously we still have these placeholders, which I am going to fill with our pickled items coming up here. All right, so I still have this gap here. Didn't have enough nuts and fruits to fill it in, so I decided that the carrots will go on here. Since we left the crackers off to the side, there's enough room on here to put the carrots in. You can kind of slice them in half to make them a little bit smaller. I did that for these two and left the other ones whole. So then it just leaves these two placeholders, which you can fill with dip, pickled items. You could put the nuts in there too, whatever you want. A lot of times people will include honey or jams, different mustards, things like that in there. I've also got hummus because we've got the carrots. I'll do some pickled items in this one and some hummus in this one, so that should wrap it up. All right, so I put some hummus in here and just sprinkled the top of it with some paprika. Came over here and put in some sauerkraut. You want to fill them into the dishes, especially if you're using the dish as a placeholder like this one is holding the pepperoni. So I just very carefully forked it in there. And then, my friends, we are all set. We've got our crackers, we've got our fruits, vegetables, meats, cheeses, spreads, everything you need. The only other thing is to make sure you've got different utensils to help people serve. So we'll put a spreader in there and fork in here, and a little bit of a spoon over here, and people are set. So the best way to do this is to kind of plan ahead. Like I said, everything that I put on here is things that we just happen to have in our fridge. And what's nice about a grazing board is you don't need a lot of any one thing. You can just have a little bit of different things here and there. And once you put it all together, it looks really full and beautiful and vibrant. And all of that diversity adds to the flavors and the experience of your grazing board. So you will want to plan ahead though. Have your vegetables and fruits cut, washed, all of that beforehand, even your meats and cheeses. If you want to do that the day before or that morning, depending on when you're having your celebration, that's a good idea. And then you can just have fun assembling it probably about half an hour or so before your guests get there. Like I said, you don't want to move it after it's assembled. So unless you have lips on your platter that you're using, I use just a straight cutting board, which if I picked up right now, everything would fall off. So we're gonna leave it sit there, and we're actually gonna graze off of it for dinner tonight. But yeah, have fun, be creative. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It's all about just sharing a wonderful food experience and time with your loved ones, friends, and family. Let me know if you have any questions. Like I said, we have different types of charcuterie available in the store, as well as some cheeses. So if you want to feature them on your board, we would be honored to be part of that. Have a wonderful holiday season, and let me know if you have questions. Thanks.